...2025 has come to an end, and it was an exciting year in music that gave us interesting trends, emerging artists and old favorites, viral tracks and classic anthems, and of course, chart-topping hits.
In this special episode, we'll talk about the biggest movers and shakers on the Billboard Philippines charts this year, as well as some predictions for 2026.
That's right, Anton and Jason, this is Off the Charts, the year-end special. Okay, let's get it started. What are your highlights for the year 2025, Jason?
Yeah, like you said, no, 2025, very exciting year for OPM.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, the ultimate highlight, the highlight of highlights, has to be Cup of Joe, setting the record for the most consecutive weeks at number one.
Yep.
With Multo. They spent 27 weeks straight at the top of the Philippines Hot 100. That's more than half the year. And right now, they're still within striking distance. They've been, trading places with Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and you know what? On top of that, they were also on top of the Philippine songs charts.
Yeah, they're still...
Multo, has been number one for about, the math is correct, around 33 weeks now.
As of the time that we're taping
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
it's 33 weeks.
And that makes it the Filipinos' most popular song for more than half a year. And it's a very big achievement for Cup of Joe, who are no strangers to topping the charts, as they had hits before like Tingin, their collab with Janine Teñoso that also entered the charts.
Yeah, and what's remarkable about the band's achievement is that even if Multo was a song that went viral on TikTok, there were fans really listened to their album Silakbo.
Yeah.
As we've seen some of the songs from their chart, like Pahina. And with the band currently on tour, they've been to the US and Canada, and now they're gonna do a nationwide tour early in 2026. We can expect more songs from that album to gain traction.
Yeah, and you know what? Which brings us to our next point, that albums are not dead.
Yeah.
Especially now during the time of streaming, we're in a lot of artists who just release singles. We've seen it, SB19, Beanie, Cup of Joe, Taylor Swift, and Sabrina Carpenter, to name a few.
Yeah, and it goes to show that many Filipino fans still listen to full albums. And in some cases, multiple songs from the same album would appear on the Philippines Hot 100. Not just in a span of months, sometimes at the same time, no? Like
Yeah.
Sabrina Carpenter, a lot of songs from her album Short and Sweet charted, and now with her new album, Man's Best Friend, 8 of its tracks charted in the same week in
Yeah.
September.
And it happened to SB19 as well.
Yeah.
All 6 tracks of their new EP, Simula at Wakas, entered the Philippines charts in May.
Yeah.
And I guess that's our next topic here, the comeback of SB19.
Yeah,
Last year we didn't see them.
Yeah,
but now, they're here,
Yeah.
they're back.
Yeah, we sort of anticipated it maybe earlier this year. And it's not surprising that, the Kings of P-pop, they made a strong comeback in 2025.
Yeah.
From a critical standpoint, the EP is brilliant. It's really, really brilliant. And the songs like Damn, Dungka, and Time, they're very compelling in their own way. They've nag-evolve yung sound nila. They're a group that just improved in pretty much every aspect.
Yeah, and they also sold out 2 nights at the Philippine Arena and kicked off a world tour.
Yeah.
But also, P-pop in general was on the rise this
Yeah.
year, like G22, Alamat, YGIG, and more. And hopefully, we get to see their songs on the charts next year.
And, let's not forget Beanie. Of
course.
They're still there. They're still, very, very popular. And they just released a new album. So let's see if they can recapture that chart supremacy, that chart dominance that they had back in 2024 with whatever activities that they have planned for the year. So what else stood out for you in 2025, Anton?
Well, as with any year, there was a lot of old songs that just reappeared out of nowhere and, broke into the charts because they became viral and TikTok and social media, like let's say Tensionado by Soap Dish, Upuan by Glock 9, and also Waltz of 4 Left Feet by Shirebound.
Oh yeah, Shirebound. That guy, si Shirebound and Busking, before they became a band. He's this independent singer-songwriter who became popular because his songs were on soundtracks of a lot of indie films, right? And, speaking of soundtracks, that's another factor that, that helped a lot of songs chart this year. We all know the story of K-pop Demon Hunters. It has become like a massive worldwide phenomenon in itself. Thanks to songs like Golden, and which has been in the top 10 of the Philippines Hot 100 for many, many weeks now.
And let's not forget the songs on the hit web series, the Ang Mutya ng
Oh,
Section
yeah.
E, which includes chart-breaking songs like Tibok by Earl Agustin and Sa Bawat Sandali by Amiel Sol, as well as Tingin by Cup of Joe and Janine, which we mentioned earlier.
So yeah, very exciting, very exciting. As for genres, besides all the hugot songs that Filipinos love, hip hop has been a constant presence on the Billboard Philippines chart all year. We've had hits by Hail Mary, Robledo Timido, Hev Abi, others, even Glock 9 returned to the charts
Yeah.
at some point. And then R&B and pop also because of, hit makers like Dionela, Maki, Arthur Neri, many more, However, as much as we've been wishing it, one genre that didn't make much of an impact, at least in terms of new releases, is rock.
Yeah, and a lot of rock songs that we saw on the charts this year were old ones.
Yeah.
Like you had Burnout by Sugar Free, Soap Dish, of course. But we've seen some recent releases by bands that broke into the charts and go up the ranks. Like, let's say, Over October was there.
Hey
We
June.
had one from Hey June. And most recently, Fitterkarma as well.
Yes, Fitterkarma. I am really curious, like, how high they can reach.
Yeah.
Right? In 2026. And of course, let's not forget IV of Spades. Their comeback single Aura also charted immediately, also like less than a week. I think it's parang record time din yun eh.
Yeah.
Ang bilis niya makapasok sa charts right just a few days after it was released, no? And yeah, these bands may not be rock in the loud traditional sense, but it's nice to see some representatives of the OPM band scene. These bands, they all came from the same club scene, right? Lahat naman doon nagsimula. And it's nice to see them in the charts, you know. Millions of Filipinos are listening to their songs, right? So, given that, what are your predictions for next year?
Oh, here we go, 2026. Well, Jason, we just talked about it. And I think it's finally going to happen, our wish. Not exactly, though, because the bands that we are seeing aren't necessarily like rock.
Yeah.
But we're getting more bands on the charts. And we've seen it already. IV Spades comeback, over October, Hey June again, to name a few. And the fact that the number one song and the winners of the Song of the Year at the FMAs is Cup of Joe with Multo. And from the time of this recording, the number two track on the Billboard Philippines Hot 100 is Fitterkarma's
That's crazy.
Pag-ibig ay Kalabilismo 2. I feel like it won't be long before they dethrone Multo by Cup of Joe. And then on the other hand, I'm expecting to see though still a lot of hip-hop tracks get on the charts. It's still one of the biggest genres in the country.
Oh yeah, I agree with all of that, especially with hip hop. It's very inherent, I guess, to Filipinos that they like the stories of hip hop. They like the artists. They relate with the artists. They relate with the lyrics. So hip hop will always be a popular genre.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I also see P-pop getting bigger next year, as we saw a lot of new releases in 2025. From the likes of G22, Alamat, YGIG, Aja. Kahit singles lang yan, kahit they're not full albums. It's there's a lot of P-pop material besides arguably what we would call the big two, right? There's so much more. There's so much more, and they're all trying different things. They're all trying their own sound, their own image. They're trying to be unique, and also there are like some promising new groups like Wink. So P-pop as a whole, it's still a very relatively young genre compared to rap or hip hop or R&B. But I see it evolving and expanding even further in the next year. Now, I don't want to make any specific predictions because, given the dynamic landscape of how and also how streaming and social media affects the way listeners discover and consume music. Anything can happen, which I think makes it exciting. Music doesn't really stand on its own right now in the sense that it's intrinsically, connected to movies, TV, social media trends. And, for all we know, a TikTok trend can determine the next big thing in OPM, as we have seen multiple times in the last few years, no? And plus, there's the industry factor, we've heard news of labels opening and closing shop every year. And AI. There's a new player in the scene called na it's AI. Na
True.
we've read news about international labels and streaming companies making deals with AI companies for we don't know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that in itself could turn the whole scene inside out. So yeah, anyway, I don't wanna, be the bearer of doom or anything, but it's a very, very, very exciting time for music,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's for the better or for the worse,
Right.
let's see what happens.
Yeah. Well, that about does it for our recap of 2025 for Off the Charts. Jason and Ton, we're signing out.